It always comes down to mission. Like if there's not a bigger mission involved than just lining my pocket or getting title or, writing an article or being featured here or there, like it's not enough for me. And that's one of the reasons that I joined the military, and there's a bigger mission that's much bigger than me.
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. What's up, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast, Create Your Career, and this is episode number 102 of Conversations with Inspirational People. I am so excited that you're here with me today. My guest today is the one and only, the great, the founder and CEO of Bottle Breacher, Eli Crane. We had an amazing conversation chock full of insanely inspirational and helpful and useful information. He gave us a lot of advice, a lot of tips, a lot of good content here about working with your spouse, starting up a company while you're already working somewhere else. Like, for example, he was a Navy SEAL and he started Bottle Breacher 2 years before he got out. So there's a lot of things to take away from this, and he just kept on grinding. And when I asked him about his biggest obstacle at the end of the episode, he answered it like no one else has answered it. And I that's saying something after 102 guests. So really great all the way through to the end. Can't wait until you listen to this one. Remember, you can find this episode and all the other conversations and the contemplations, which are just me, and those are only on audio. Both episodes are on kristoflewis.com/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. And you can find me on Instagram at Kristof Lewis. Thank you so much for listening to yet another episode. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast.
Right on. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, I was so excited to speak with you for so many reasons. And I just want to say right off the bat, I heard you say in one of the podcasts that your wife and you two girls were the inspiration for you to start up the company. And I got a 7-month-old. And I was telling you, like, we're about to move. We're actually moving back to be closer to family. So when I heard you say that, I was like, that's pretty awesome. That totally is some of the most inspirational stuff I've heard. And I know when it comes from the family, like close like that, it was really cool, man. But I kind of wanted to say, like, tell me about your desire to work towards something that is so, it's not everybody is cut out for entrepreneurship. So like, why did you choose that? And I know you started it 2 years before you got out of the service, but did you have like anything else on your mind that you wanted to do, or was it always that company?
No, it wasn't, like this was some, pipe dream that I'd had since I was a kid. This was, one of those things where it was a combination of catching the entrepreneurial bug. About 4 years before I got out of the Navy, I left SEAL Team 3 and I went to a command called the NSW Recruiting Directorate, where we don't recruit SEALs for reasons of if you have to talk somebody into being there, they're not going to be there when things get really really tough. And so, but we do raise awareness among certain communities around the country. And so that's what we did at that command. And while I was there, a couple of the guys that worked in that shop with me invited me to be a part of their startup. It was called Acumen Performance Group. And it was a really cool business. I loved working with these dudes. I loved what they were doing. And that's where I caught the entrepreneurial bug. And it's up until that point in my life, I actually, believe it or not, thought I was too stupid to even think about starting a business, because I always figured that businessmen and women were just like, just super brainiac, like really, smart. And I was the kid that, barely graduated high school and really didn't care when it came to school. And I had made this agreement or this, connected the dots that, you had to be, do really well in school to become an entrepreneur. And as I got more and more into it and started going down that road, what I realized is that, you're right. Not everybody is going to make a good entrepreneur, and it's not for everybody. But if you're willing to take risk, if you have some street smarts, if you're able to build a team, and if you're not afraid of failure, you have a lot of the raw material necessary to, enter into this, arena. And when I realized that, because when you're working for somebody else, some of the sayings you'll hear is, somebody's only going to pay you enough to where you don't leave. And, and there's a lot of truth there if you're looking at just straight corporate jobs. But as an entrepreneur, a lot of the wealthiest people in the world and most successful people in the world are entrepreneurs because there's no cap. You can grow something to whatever size, that it can be. And I just love the challenge of building something from scratch and turning it into something and making my own hours. And if I worked harder, there was direct input and direct result. And so, all of it put together seemed exciting to me. Whereas I figured if I was going to take a regular job out of the military, that I was going to kind of drift off into obscurity. And, in a sense, I always look back at my glory days in the Navy as, that's when things were good because I wasn't being challenged or I wasn't going big anymore. And so that's kind of what led me to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's kind of an issue for a lot of people getting out of the military, I think, is that losing that sense of purpose. And I know that's one of the things you've been able to maintain with Bottle Breacher, being involved post-military with the community, with veterans and nonprofits. And I think that's one of the most incredible things about the company is literally just that, because you've found that not only do you have this project that you started essentially 2 years before it just blew up into this massive company where you guys are just rocketing up, meeting incredible people, affecting so many lives possible. But you need to think about the individual listening needs to think about you. So you were able to help you as well, and you're able to continue that sense of purpose for yourself as well. And I kind of want to dial it back to when you said about high school, because I couldn't stand school either, dropped out of college. I didn't think I really liked learning at all. And when you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, I was like, damn, don't we really always have these preconceived notions about ourselves that are literally limiting ourselves? And it's kind of scary that those labels are put on us by us. And I'm glad to see that obviously you've been able to strip that away and kind of do it. Do you know kind of what helped you strip that away? I mean, you obviously started it, like you said, 2 years before and you were working on it, but I guess it was probably a gradual process. Or did you ever have a eureka moment, I can do this? All that stuff that I was telling myself was kind of, BS.
Yeah, I think momentum and confidence are a big part of that. And, after becoming a SEAL, it definitely kind of changed my outlook on what was difficult, what I was capable of. So that was definitely beneficial. But then as I was starting Bottle Breacher in the garage, I remember my initial goal, it wasn't to build a impressive company. It was actually for supplemental income. My goal was my first goal was to make $500 a month. And that was,
nice.
To be able to take my wife on a date or maybe, save up, for the new Sig Sauer 226 or whatever it was. And now, you got one on the wall back there.
It's the one on it's the one on the upper left right there. It's awesome. It's my favorite pistol, man.
That's a great handgun, man. And I just spent the last week out in New Hampshire at Sig Sauer at Camp Legion, and just had a blast.
That is badass.
But anyway, so that was my initial goal. In the first month that we started Bottle Breacher, I was making everything with a Dremel tool, some spray paint, and stickers online. I was buying dummy rounds online. I was buying them at I was buying 10 at a time. Yeah. Because I learned in the SEAL teams the crawl, walk, run mentality. When you see SEALs or whatever, special forces guys taking down a ship on a commercial or storming the beach or whatever the hell they're doing, they don't start their training blocks that way. They start with the crawl, then the walk, then the run. You'll start fast roping or rappelling on a rappel tower with no gear on, in daylight. And 2 weeks later, you'll be doing everything at night on nods, with role players and live breach scenes and all sorts of stuff. Well, I tried to take that mentality into entrepreneurship and really mitigate risk and kind of, dip the toe in a little bit to kind of see if there was magic there. Because, when you run into a lot of successful entrepreneurs and you start listening to them talk, like Mark Cuban wrote in his book, he wrote, "You only have to be right one time." And if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they can all go over a list of failures, companies that they started that didn't materialize or turn into anything, before they actually got to the one where they hit it out of the park. And I think that's so important that as we're trying to build up our knowledge base, and as we're going through those failures, we're mitigating our risk, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and there comes a time where you have to jump in, with both feet. But one of the things that entrepreneurs, I think we fail to do most often is we fail to prove our concept. And what I mean by that is we fail to prove that somebody's willing to trade their hard-earned money or their, hard-earned capital for our service or our product. And I'll talk to entrepreneurs all the time that'll be like, "Oh, I got the best idea. And, what do you think of it?" And, they'll give you all the analytics in the world, but they've yet to prove that anybody will pay for this thing.
Yeah.
And so as you're trying to prove that concept and get your startup, headed in the right direction and build some momentum, it's important, I think, that you risk mitigate. And so I was buying 10 pieces at a time, and then I'd sell those. And then, I'd buy 20 and then I'd sell those. And all throughout the process, I continued to reach out to people that had experience where I had none, and try and figure out, how to make this product better and how to bring, smarter, more talented people onto the team. And we tried to operate with, real low overhead. We started in the garage, and my wife ran admin from our living room. And
that's awesome.
It was just, it was just a real bootstrap, operation. But, within 2 years, we were doing about $80,000 a month out of that one car garage. And, that's when, right about that time is when I went and pitched at an open casting call for Shark Tank, which obviously changed the direction of the company drastically.
Yeah. But how cool is that? Like $500 goal, 80K, 2 years, like that's massive. That's massive. That's thousands of percentages of growth. And actually, I was kind of telling you a little bit offline before we went live, it's something I haven't talked about on the podcast with you guys too much, but I am in the beginning stages of doing what you're just talking about. And I talked to somebody who's doing exactly what I'm doing right now, but different. And he said something that I had never heard of before that you just confirmed. And it was get it out the door, essentially. Like, get your product up. Because I was like, but I have this feature, I have this feature. I was like listing off feature after feature. And I was like, it's going to take a couple of years. He's like, listen, man, you need to like build a prototype right now. You need to get it out there and you need to test it again. And then you need to go from that, and you can add those things in as features later down the road. So to hear that redundancy, you say that again, is like, I mean, that's awesome. And that's exactly what I needed to hear in getting into that as well. And that you had like smarter people, you're like raising the bar constantly for people that you want to work with you and keeping people like that. So getting that proof of concept, having those people around you, and I think setting a goal and actually going after that goal is incredible, because you don't know where it's going to go. Like, I'm all about selling ourselves short, and you had this kind of label on yourself and you blew it out.
Do you have a moment? I'm gonna walk 2 feet over here. I'm gonna grab one of the first 10 bottle breachers I ever made and show you the difference between what I started with a Dremel tool and a sticker and some spray paint, and what they look like now, just to show you what your friend was talking about. How even as I look at the initial ones, the first ones, they look like crap, but people still bought them.
That's
I was
what I'm
able
saying.
to prove my concept with bare minimum investment, and then improve it from there. So I'll be right back.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So I keep these on the wall so that, I don't forget where we came from.
How cool is that?
Sometimes it helps. But this is one of the first ones ever created. You can see how nasty this cut is that I did with the Dremel tool.
Yeah.
And you can see the sticker on there and whatnot. But people still bought it in this form.
You guys are going to have to check this out on YouTube.
You're chrome plating it. You're having a CNC machine actually do the cut. It's so much more professional, but we were able to prove the concept with very minimal capital investment. And it's so important that you prove the concept early, because until you do that, you really have jack squat.
So I love making comparisons, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea for entrepreneurs, especially when you have a product or even a service, like try it out on your friends, right? So I think because I focus on career transitions, because I had a lot of trouble initially, and I saw a lot of sailors that worked under me had a lot of trouble getting out of the military. So that's little background on why I started this. But like, have a proof of concept for what you want to do. Like, I got out last year in 2018, and I started in 2015 when I knew I wanted to get out already. And I already started like my quote unquote proof of concept. Like, where do I want to work? Like, doing my due diligence on the sector I wanted to work at. Do I have the skills? What skills do I need? Brush up on those skills. Get the certifications I need, because I was telling you I work in IT now. And those are the type of things that you can start. So I just, again, I think you may have mentioned thinking outside the box earlier. And I think that like, these things aren't just like static. Like, they don't have to be thought of one way. Get it out the door and just do it in proof of concept. Well, go out there, talk to people in your community or the potential community that you're going to work in, and get it out there and test it. Just like you are selling it to guys on your team. I think that's brilliant. So go out there and do something as well. And maybe even if you're currently working a job, whether you're in the military now or if you are a civilian, like, go out there and maybe you can like intern, at night or on the weekends or something. I don't know. Like, just go out there and get it done. So I love that. I was curious, how long have you been in business now total?
I think we're at 6 years now.
Okay.
So
interesting. So super interesting. So I'm wondering, like, have you noticed like anything change over the last 6 years? Obviously the first 2 years were probably like, you didn't have any time to yourself, but like, as like your mindset, have you seen like an evolution of maybe things that you thought were going to be a certain way, but they turned out completely different, or things that you maybe thought were going to be hurdles or obstacles and they've turned out not to be? Or what are some maybe lessons learned?
Right. Yeah. So there, one of the things I realized kind of the hard way was when I went on the Shark Tank. I was looking for an investment, but more importantly than that, I was looking for what I call tactical partners. Okay. So people that could not only provide, capital when we needed it, but also people that would kind of mentor and advise. And what I didn't realize at the time was how busy these investors and these sharks really are. And looking at it now, I know Mark Cuban has at least like 80 Shark Tank companies, and then he owns the Dallas Mavericks, and he's got little kids, and you realize now that how much these guys got going on, and like any investors that have done what they've done and gotten to where they are in life, these guys want their money to work for them. Mm-hmm. They don't want to work for their money, and they've earned that. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that. That was something that I thought, would go a little bit differently, but the good news is that we've been able to kind of figure it out and, stay alive and continue to develop products and survive many failures. So, that was something that I learned the hard way. And then I learned how hard it is to work with your spouse. And, I don't recommend that to most people, but, the flip side of that coin is that it's been a blessing, because my wife and I, we've had to learn to work together. And that was something we didn't know how to do. Yeah. The deal when you're deploying with NSW all the time, you're barely even home. Yeah. There's no way for you to learn how to, really live with your wife, when you're not home. And so not only did I have to learn to live with, my wife and be around more, but we had to run a business together. And so it really compounded things, and it made us, really learn to, I think, understand what each other's strengths and weaknesses were, and kind of divvy up the responsibilities in the swim lanes, as I like to call them. And it's actually brought us closer together. So I'm thankful for that.
Is that what you would recommend to like, one of my questions that I was thinking of is like, well, what were some of the differences? Like, what are some of the complications? But just, you said, kind of divvy things up was kind of the remediation for you. Like, have a separation, and I think that could be very difficult because my wife and I have actually tossed that back around to be able to go into business with each other and some other things, and it would just be like it's hard because I think you don't look at it like a business partner per se, and this is just my opinion, and I think that you would look at that person and like there's certain things that your wife or your significant other can push your buttons easy, and the way they say something, and I think it'd be hard to separate that. I mean, was there something big that stuck out, and then how did you said you settled the differences, or kind of you had different roles for different people essentially? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of dancing around it, but at the end of the day, it's like, especially when you have little kids and you're trying to, you're trying to balance life, and you're trying to raise kids, and you never get to rest because as an entrepreneur, I mean, you're running everything, and you're putting out fires left and right, and it's not like a 9-to-5 job where you go home and you just leave work at home. I mean, when you go home, you start dealing with marketing and social media and customer service and new product development and accounting and, all these different things. And when you bring that kind of stress into a relationship where the national average is 50% failure rate, I mean, you're adding a ton of stress into an already difficult, at times situation. And so, especially if you have, like, for instance, my wife, the reason I asked her if she would help me start this business was because she had experience running online business. Right.
Oh, okay. There we go.
So when you have two people and you're trying to figure out, who's in charge, who's running this, who's running that, and you've got ego involved, that can be a real pitfall and a real disaster. And I'm just thankful that we've kind of figured out what our swim lanes are, and we kind of try and support each other now a lot more than we did back in the day. And like I said, it was tough, but it's been a blessing.
Absolutely. And you said it as well, like you're stronger now because of that. And from my opinion, looking in from the outside, I think, like, with you having said like that, your wife and your two girls were your inspiration in the beginning, I think that probably says a lot to why you guys are successful in all that you're doing. So to me, again, that's pretty awesome for me to hear that from the outside. And I kind of want to go back to one of the things we talked about a little bit earlier with Bottle Breacher being involved with the community, the veteran community, and with nonprofits. Where was the decision to get involved in that aspect? Where did that come from? I mean, obviously you're a vet yourself, but what was that main decision?
Right. So for me, I'll be honest with you. There was not a day that I was growing up as a young boy where I was like, you know what would be awesome if I sold bottle openers when I was older, right? Yeah. I mean, who's ever said that, And so for me, life, it always comes down to mission. Like, if there's not a bigger mission involved than just, lining my pocket or, getting title or, writing an article or being featured here or there, like it's not enough for me. And that's one of the reasons that I joined the military, and, because there's a bigger mission that's much bigger than me. And so, if I don't have that in my life, there's just kind of an empty void. And so one of the ways for me to fill that void was to figure out how I could continue to serve. And a lot of there's many veteran nonprofits, there's many charities out there, regardless of what your passion is. There are phenomenal ways for, regardless of where you are or what profession you work in, that give you the opportunity to come alongside and partner with them and, continue to give back. And that was really cool for me. Like, for instance, I'm going to do Elite Meet. I'm going to go up to Elite Meet for like my 7th time up in New York here in November. And it's always awesome just getting to share some of my failures and lessons learned with, that group of transitioning special operators, because, these guys deserve it, man. They deserve, every opportunity to turn the page and transition well. And if guys like me aren't willing to step up and, take time out of our schedule and go, like, share our lessons learned and share what we've learned, then what's wrong with us? We're really not being brothers at all. And so that's just been really cool and something I hope we always get to do.
And I absolutely love that, like just passing the torch. And I know, like we were saying, like transition can be tough regardless of if you're in the military or a civilian transferring to another job. But having the military background, I know like leaving that safety net of everything that comes with the military can be really, really difficult. And obviously the lifestyle is so different. And like you mentioned, like NSW or just Navy, obviously, like you deploy 6-9 months at a time. NSWs are just a little bit more often, maybe just not as long, but either way, you're gone all the time. Right. So like to get out, and it's so funny you mentioned Elite Meat. I was down in VB a couple weeks ago, and I ran into a couple at a coffee shop down there, and their son is utilizing Elite Meat. And I just thought it was so incredible that he's getting out and he's able to utilize that. And there's companies out there, there's people like yourself that are going out there and creating like that, and then you're speaking there, and I think it means so much more. Like I had mentioned, like if you want to go do something, then go find somebody in that field and talk with them. So if you're going out there and you're giving your time to talk with somebody like you are graciously today with me and my listeners, you go out there and you share some of your mindset with them. I think that's incredibly inspirational. Like I said, again, selfishly, like I want to create this company. I want to learn from you, but I don't want to keep it there. I want to share it with other people. I want to inspire other people. Like, hey, for example, like it's not black and white. You don't have to like, I get out of the Navy on Friday and I have to go be an entrepreneur on Monday. It's not like that. You did it for 2 years and you've said that it wasn't easy. So by doing what you're doing and by helping out companies that are helping people do that, and we all collaborate and help each other, like just like a team, you know, we're so much stronger together, as cliche that it is. There's so much truth in that. So no, that's awesome. I love that. And I did want to say, you mentioned having a bigger mission. So like if you have this why, if you have this bigger mission, I know that's something that you can always reach back to, because I'm sure with the long days and the long nights, that's incredibly hard to get through and do all that as well. One of the last things I wanted to touch on was obstacles. And obviously you've had your fair share of obstacles with even within the military, starting the company and post-military as well. Is there something that maybe stands out to you more than the other thing that you thought maybe I wasn't going to make it, and this could be your career as a SEAL, this could be your career as an entrepreneur? Is there something that stands out, and is there like a big lesson that stood out from that you learned that you're like, wow, this is incredible?
You know, I think you might have touched on it a little bit towards the beginning, but I think avoiding self-sabotage and avoiding self-agreement, you know, and kind of deselecting and trying to you know, paint ourselves into, you know, these little boxes of what we're capable of. I think, and overcoming failure, those are the biggest things for me, because I've got so many failures under my sleeve that, you know, we could fill warehouses with them. A lot of people only, you know, see or, you know, read about the successes, but they don't see the mountains of failure behind them. And that's something that, overcoming failure and, you know, and, understanding that, you know, I don't have to be pigeonholed into, you know, these little boxes. I can get out there. I can try new things. I can fail. I can learn from those failures, and then I can apply them to the next attempt. You know, for me, because like I love to tell people I was fired from Dairy Queen and Baskin Robbins in the same year in high school, right? The first time I went to Navy SEAL training, I failed. I was sent out to a ship for 2.5 years. First time I tried to become an NSW sniper, I failed that. You know, the first investor I ever sat down with for bottom breacher, massive failure. You know, and I'm still failing to this day, but I think one of the biggest things that separates the winners in life from, you know, people that aren't winning is how they view failure. And for winners, we don't view failure as you know, a stop sign or a turn back sign. You're going the wrong way. We view it as part of the journey. We know it's going to be there, and we see it more as a detour sign. Like, okay, I can't keep going this way, but if I come over here to the right, and then I try and work the way around, maybe I can figure out a different way to get there. And so, just understand mindset. You know, reshaping my own mindset from kind of a loser mindset to a winning mindset has been a big part of the process for me, and it's something I continue to work on.
Yeah, I love that answer because it's not like there was, because obviously you said you had your fair share of failures, but it wasn't like this one defining, like, this is my answer, this was one thing, it was just one thing. It was like this all-encompassing mindset, because if you don't have a hold of that, then you're not going to have a hold of anything. So that is probably the best answer I've heard in a while because of that. And that's why I like asking these questions. So I really appreciate it. And gosh, Eli, I really appreciate your time and everything so much. Before we get out of here, is there a way, and what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and more about Bottle Breacher?
If they want to learn more about Bottle Breacher, I would tell them to go to bottlebreacher.com. If they want to know more about me personally and follow me, I think my handle's like Eli Crane CEO on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But good, for everybody out there listening, I mean, this really is it really is an awesome path, the entrepreneur, track.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for everybody, but if you're willing to work harder than everybody else, you can live a life that nobody else gets to live. And for those of you trailblazers out there that have a lot of courage, don't give up, because like Cuban said, and like I've learned myself, you only have to be right one time, and you're probably not going to be right your first or second try, man. Just keep swinging away, keep failing, keep learning from those failures, and just apply it to the next swing.
Absolutely love that. And you all will be able to find all of that information in the show notes as well. All right, Eli, like I said, thank you so much for your time. I'm just full of gratitude for that, and I don't take it for granted. So thanks so much, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, brother. You too.